In this video, I'm going to show you how Scrivener's compiler works. Hi everybody, it's Bela from the Writer's Territory. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can use the compiler of Scrivener. Now, first of all, Scrivener has changed the compiler, how the compiler works, from version 3 on the Mac. So if you have an older version, this might not work for you because the compiler in the newer version works completely different. Okay, and also the compiler in Scrivener can do a lot. It has a lot of settings and it is very powerful. So it will not be possible to explain everything it does to you in this video because I'm trying to keep it short. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain to you the basic principle of the compiler, which components are necessary and important, so you can play with it and you have a basic understanding of how the pieces fit together, and you can start making your own compiles with confidence because you know in which part to look if something doesn't go the way you intended to. Okay? Alright, so let's get started. The compiler consists of several pieces that fit together that you need to define. First of all, go to Project Settings. And this is not in the compiler itself, so it might get overlooked easily. In Project Settings, in Section Types, you need to define which section types you want to use, and this refers to what kinds of documents do you want to use. You see here, this is the novel template, by the way. I'm using the novel template for this, but it really doesn't matter. You can use whatever you like, okay? And here you can see the section types that are in this template: part heading, chapter heading, scene, and so on and so forth. And they give you a little hint to what different kinds of documents are used in this project, and you just add new ones or delete the ones you have here with plus or minus. It's really simple. Also, you should define, to make things easier for you, which documents and on which levels use which section by default. Now this looks a little bit similar to the older compiler in the older versions of Scrivener. If you're used to those, you can set levels of folders and levels of document groups and levels of document and define for each one of them which section type is going to be used in the compile by default. It doesn't mean that you can change everything in the compiler afterwards. It's just this is the default setting. So you see that, for example, and when you select one type of group, let's say, you see that the binder shows you which documents are affected by this setting. You see? So this makes it easier for you to see which documents will be affected by this. And under section type, you can just choose one of the section types you have defined here. Okay, so this is important. First, project settings, setting those section types up. Okay. Next, section layouts. We have defined which kinds of sections we have, the section types. Now we're going to define how will they look like. Okay, and for this we do go to the compiler this time. Click File, Compile. And then here on the left side you have the compile formats, and you can use those presets if you like. But if you really want to know how the compiler works, either take one of those, duplicate it and change it, or create one of your own. I'm going to take one of those and duplicate it and manipulate it in order to show you what's behind it. So just double click on one of those. I'm going to choose manuscript times. And then it says duplicate and edit format, because you cannot edit the Scrivener formats that come with Scrivener. So you cannot change anything of those, but you can use those, duplicate them, and then change them into your own formats. And here at the top, you see it says format name, manuscript times copy. So you could rename that any way you like. And then you have save to, and this lets you select between, do you want to save this under the project formats, so it is saved with this project, with this Scrivener project, or do you want to save it under my formats, so it is not saved with the project itself, and you could also use it with other Scrivener projects. Okay, so I'm going to leave this with project formats. And then you have here on the left side, you have different sections to choose from. And the first one is section layouts. And this is what I wanted to show you primarily. Here you have a lot of different section layouts that could possibly be important in this template. And from the name, you get a hint to what it is, okay? And what this basically does is you define what different types of section layouts, or let's say section formatting, do you need? And which elements do you need in those sections? So this is nothing else as if to say, I have, let's say, chapter titles in my project, and everything that is a chapter title should only use the title and nothing else. For every section layout, you can choose if you want to include the title, the metadata, the synopsis, the notes, and the text, which is the content of the editor, the text body. The section layouts that are in bold are used ones, and those not in bold are not used. And if you click on a used one, you see assigned to chapter heading in this case. Now you see that chapter heading doesn't have anything selected here, but if you go to the settings underneath, you can change this section layout, and there are a lot of settings. For example, here you have title prefix chapter with a placeholder, and this is a little advanced. I'm not gonna explain all of that in this video, but just so you know, once you select one section layout here at the top, you choose which elements you want to have included, and then you can choose a bunch of settings underneath. Okay, formatting, some options for prefix and suffix, how new pages are handled, and prefix and suffix content and other settings. Okay, so just go through these once you feel ready to look into the advanced stuff. Okay. All right, and here at the top you have plus and minus. You can add new section layouts. It's very simple. You just hit the plus and give it a name, new section layout, or you could also name that headline with text, or you could also name that new page headline with text, or anything that might give you a hint to yourself or someone else, so you know what this is going to do. Okay, and then you select, do you want to include the title or metadata, synopsis, notes, and text, and so on. Here you have some additional settings. You can, for example, how you want to have prefixes and suffixes handled, or if you want to place the notes after your main text and other stuff. Okay. All right. Also, apart from the section layouts, you have other settings. They are in part self-explanatory. I'm just going to look into these separators because they are really important. They define if you have several documents underneath. Because if you write your novel, you will have several chapters and several scenes. So you will have several titles, and then you will have blocks of text, and then you will have another chapter, and so on and so forth. And this defines how those different document types or sections are separated. Also, you see here which section layouts are used, and you have a default section where you can define how folders are separated by default and text files are separated by default. So here, for example, you see if you have folders, before a folder begins, that means something has to be before that folder. If you start with a folder, the before sections doesn't apply because there is nothing before that section. But you have something before that section and then a folder, there is going to be a page break before. If you have several folders in a row, between each of those folders, Scrivener is going to put an empty line or whatever you can choose. You can choose between single return, empty line, page break, or custom. With custom, you can put something in here. Okay, something like this. if you want. I'm going to leave it at single return. And then for each of those section layouts, you can choose if you want to use those default separators or if you want to choose different separators for this section. Okay. Then you have styles, text layouts, and so forth, transformation. Just click through these and see what is self-explanatory and play a little bit with it, okay? But the most important thing with those settings are section layouts, what is included, how they are formatted if you want to change that, and how they're separated, okay? All right, let's say you have defined your section layouts, or at least roughly, to see what they do. Let me just save this copy here so we have something to now use. Okay, now you see under project formats, you have the manuscript times copy that I've just created as a duplicate from this manuscript times compile format. All right, so let's say we set up our section layouts the way we want them to and the separators the way we need. And now you have those section layouts here in the middle and you click assign section layouts. This is important because now you have to choose of the section types you are using, which are now only chapter heading, scene, and front matter, because there are no other documents at this time in the binder that use different sections. Of those section types used, which one of those should we give which layout? Okay, so if you have chapter heading selected, you see that everything that has the section type chapter heading is going to use this layout chapter heading. Now, in this case, it has the same name, but you could name it differently. And you could also select another. Okay, you just select which one of those layouts would you like to have for chapter heading. And also for scene, for example, here you can see that the name is different. Every document that has section type scene uses the layout section text. And front matter uses new page. Now here you only see the used section types. If you want to show the unused section type as well, click this, then you see all of them, in case you were wondering where they all are. Okay, so now let's say we are done with this. One more thing that's important in the compiler, here you can choose what you want to compile. If you want to compile your manuscript, your chapter, or you could select just a bunch of documents in the binder and use those, or you could use a filter. This lets you filter for included or excluded documents, or all of them, depending on if the included marker is set on the documents that you want to compile or not. And also you can choose apply filter for include or exclude documents with label status in a certain collection or in the current selection in the binder. And you can, depending on what you choose here, for example, if you choose with label, you can select the labels you have in your project or what status you want to use. And depending on that selection, Scrivener is going to filter which documents will be compiled here. Now there is a caution, it's easy to forget that you have a filter set. So if you're not using a filter, or let's say if you're compiling something, just check if this filter setting is set the way you want it to be. Okay, because this can trip you up because something is not right and you're compiling and it doesn't work, and you try to change all kinds of settings, but you're not aware. It happened to me a lot of times, but you're not aware that you have a filter set, so it cannot work correctly or the way you intend it to. Okay. And also here at the bottom, you can add front matter, like title pages and all of that, and back matter. You can choose from all the documents you have in the binder. It's a good best practice to have a folder for front matter and one for back matter. So you can easily access all of that here. All right, and here at the top you choose, do you want to compile for print or in whichever file format you want to have your output. Okay. All right. So that's basically it. So those are the main components of your compiler. And if you're using them correctly in combination, you can make really great stuff. Okay, so let's just go over it one more time. First thing, project settings, set up your section types and which of the documents have which section type by default. Next, in the compiler, set up, in your project format, set up your section layout, which components to include, and here at the top, and how will they look here at the bottom. And under separators, how will each of those document types will be separated. Then assign section layouts, choose which section type do you want to assign which section layout that you have just created. Hit OK, check you have the right documents selection here to compile. You see that you also have here section type, so you can manually change it here. Here you have structure based, so it's based on the settings in the project settings, but you could also manually just change it if you want to use a different section type for a certain document. Okay, check you're compiling the right documents with or without any filter, depending. Choose the format and then hit compile. Okay, those are the basic steps. I hope I could give you a brief overview over the compiler, and now you know a little bit better how all those elements fit together, because at first glance it can be a little overwhelming with all those settings. And my suggestion would be that you just try to figure out the components we just went through. Okay, do I understand roughly how they work? When I try to compile something, do I get roughly out of it what I want to get out of it? And once that's okay, you can go into more detailed settings and play a little with it. Okay, and I also suggest that if you want to compile something, look if there is a format that comes with Scrivener that is pretty similar to what you want to do, because all the settings here are already set. So you just duplicate one of the formats like the way we did, and this makes it a little easier for you to get to a usable and beautiful compile pretty fast. Thank you for watching. See you next time.